Hello, everyone, and welcome back. So, it is still March the 30th, 2021, or the 17th of Nisan, 5781. And so now we're starting in chapter 32 of Genesis. So, beginning at verse 1. Early in the morning, Laban got up, kissed his sons and daughters, and blessed them. Then Laban left and returned to his own place. Yaakov went on his way, and the angels of God met him. When Yaakov saw them, he said, "This is God's camp," and called that place Mahanaim, two camps. Yaakov sent messengers ahead of him to Esau his brother toward the land of Seir, the country of Edom, with these instructions. "Here's what you are to say to my lord, Esau. Your servant Yaakov says, I have been living with Laban and have stayed until now. I have cattle, donkeys, and flocks, and male and female servants. I am sending to tell this news to my lord in order to win your favor." The messengers returned to Yaakov, saying, "We went to your brother Esau, and he is coming to meet you. With him are 400 men. Yaakov became greatly afraid and distressed. He divided the people, flocks, cattle, and camels with him into two camps, saying, "If Esau comes to the one camp and attacks it, at least the camp that is left will escape." Then Yaakov said, "God of my father Abraham and God of my father Yitzhak, Adonai, who told me, 'Return to your country and your kinsmen, and I will do you good.' I am not worthy of all the love and faithfulness you have shown your servant since I crossed the Jordan with only my staff. But now I have become two camps. Please, rescue me from my brother Esau. I'm afraid of him, afraid he'll come and attack me without regard for mothers or children. You said, 'I will certainly do you good and make your descendants as numerous as the grains of sand by the sea, which are so many they can't be counted.'" He stayed there that night, and he chose from among his possessions the following as a present for Esau his brother: 200 female goats and 20 males, 200 female sheep and 20 males, 30 milk camels and their colts, 40 cows and 10 bulls, 20 female donkeys and 10 colts. He returned them over to his servants, every drove by itself, and said to his servants, "Cross over in front of me and keep a space between each drove and the next one." He instructed the servant in front, "When Esau my brother meets you and asks you, 'Whose servant are you? Where are you going? And whose animals are these?' then you're to say, 'They belong to your servant Yaakov, and they are a present he has sent to my lord Esau. And Yaakov himself is just behind us.'" He also instructed the second servant and the third and all that followed the droves, "When you encounter Esau, you are to speak to him in the same way, and you are to add, 'And there, just behind us, is your servant Yaakov.' For he said, 'I will appease him first with the present that goes ahead of me. Then, after that, I will see him myself, and maybe he will be friendly toward me.' So the present crossed over ahead of him, and he himself stayed that night in the camp. He got up that night, took his 2 wives, his 2 slave girls, and his 11 children, and forded the Yabok. He took them and set them across the stream, then sent his possessions across, and Yaakov was left alone. Then some man wrestled with him until daybreak. When he saw that he did not defeat Yaakov, he struck Yaakov's hip socket, so that his hip was dislocated while wrestling with him. The man said, "Let me go, because it's daybreak." But Yaakov replied, "I won't let you go unless you bless me." The man asked, "What is your name?" And he answered, "Yaakov." Then the man said, "From now on you will no longer be called Yaakov, but Israel, because you have shown your strength to both God and men and have prevailed." Yaakov asked him, "Please tell me your name." But he answered, "Why are you asking about my name?" and blessed him there. Yaakov called the place Peniel, face of God. because I have seen God face to face, yet my life is spared. As the sun rose upon him, he went on past Peniel, limping at the hip. This is why, to this day, the people of Israel do not eat the thigh muscle that passes along the hip socket, because a man struck Yaakov's hip at its socket. Chapter 33. Yaakov raised his eyes and looked out, and there was Esau coming, and 400 men with him. So Yaakov divided the children between Leah, Rachel, and the 2 slave girls, putting the slave girls and their children first, Leah and her children second, and Rachel and Joseph last. Then he himself passed on ahead of them and prostrated himself on the ground 7 times before approaching his brother. Esau ran to meet him, hugged him, threw his arms around his neck, and kissed him, and they wept. Esau looked up. On seeing the women and children, he asked, "Who are these with you?" Yaakov answered, "The children God has graciously given to your servant." Then the slave girls approached with their children, and they prostrated themselves. Leah too and her children approached and prostrated themselves, and last came Joseph and Rachel, and they prostrated themselves. Esau asked, "What was the meaning of this procession of droves I encountered?" And he answered, "It was to win my Lord's favor." Esau replied, "I have plenty already. My brother, keep your possessions for yourself." Yaakov said, "No, please. If now I have won your favor, then accept my gift. Just seeing your face has been like seeing the face of God, now that you have received me. So please accept the gift I have brought you, for God has dealt kindly with me, and I have enough." Thus he urged him until he accepted it. Esau said, "Let's break camp and get going. I'll go first." Yaakov said to him, "My Lord knows that the children are small, and the sheep and cattle suckling their young concern me, because if they overdrive them even one day, all the flocks will die. Instead, please let my Lord go on ahead of his servant. I will travel more slowly, at the pace of the cattle ahead of me, and at the pace of the children, until I come to my Lord at Seir." Esau replied, "Then let me leave with you some of the people I have with me." But Yaakov said, "There's no need for my Lord to be so kind to me." So Esau left that day to return to Seir. Yaakov went on to Sukkot, where he built himself a house and put up shelters for his cattle. This is why the place is called Sukkot, shelters. Having traveled from Padan Aram, Yaakov arrived safely at the city of Shechem in Canaan and set up camp near the city. From the sons of Hamor, Shechem's father, he bought for 100 pieces of silver the parcel of land where he had pitched his tent. There he put up an altar, which he called El Elohe Israel, God, the God of Israel. Chapter 34. One time, Dinah, the daughter of Leah, whom she had born to Yaakov, went out to visit the local girls. And Shechem, the son of Hamor the Hivite, the local ruler, saw her, grabbed her, raped her, and humiliated her. But actually, he was strongly attracted to Dinah, the daughter of Yaakov. He fell in love with the girl and tried to win her affection. Shechem spoke with his father Hamor and said, "Get this girl for me. I want her to be my wife." When Yaakov heard that he had defiled Dinah, his daughter, his sons were with his livestock in the field. So Yaakov restrained himself until they came. Hamor, the father of Shechem, went out to Yaakov to speak with him, just as Yaakov's sons were coming in from the field. When they heard what had happened, the men were saddened and were very angry at the outrage this man had committed against Israel by raping Yaakov's daughter, something that is simply not done. But Hamor said to them, "My son Shechem's heart is set on your daughter. Please give her to him as his wife, and intermarry with us. Give your daughters to us, and take our daughters for yourselves. You will live with us, and the land will be available to you. You'll live, do business, and acquire possessions here." Then Shechem said to her father and brothers, "Only accept me, and I will give whatever you tell me. Ask as large a bride price as you like. I'll pay whatever you tell me. Just let me marry the girl." The sons of Yaakov answered Shechem and Hamor his father deceitfully, because he had defiled Dinah their sister. They said to him, "We can't do it, because it would be a disgrace to give our sister to someone who hasn't been circumcised. Only on this condition will we consent to what you're asking, that you become like us by having every male among you get circumcised. Then we'll give our daughters to you, and we'll take your daughters for ourselves, and we'll live with you and become one people. But if you won't do as we say and get circumcised, then we'll take our daughter and go away." What they said seemed fair to Hamor and Shechem the son of Hamor, and the young man did not put off doing what was asked of him, even though he was the most respected member of his father's family, because he so much wanted Yaakov's daughter. Hamor and Shechem his son came to the entrance of their city and spoke with its leading men. "These people are peaceful toward us, therefore let them live in the land and do business in it. For, as you can see, the land is large enough for them. Let us take their daughters as wives for ourselves, and we'll give them our daughters. But the people will consent to live with us and become one people only on this condition, that every male among us gets circumcised, as they themselves are circumcised. Won't their cattle, their possessions, and all their animals be ours? Only let's consent to do what they ask, and then they will live with us." Everyone going out the city's gate listened to Hamor and Shechem his son. So every male was circumcised, every one that ran out the gate of the city. On the third day after the circumcision, when they were in pain, two of Yaakov's sons, Shimon and Levi, Dinah's brothers, took their swords, boldly descended on the city, and slaughtered all the males. They killed Hamor and Shechem his son with their swords, took Dinah out of Shechem's house, and left. Then the sons of Yaakov entered over the dead bodies of those who had been slaughtered, and plundered the city in reprisal for defiling their sister. They took their flocks, cattle, and donkeys, and everything else, whether in the city or in the field, everything they owned. Their children and wives they took captive, and they looted whatever was in the houses. But Yaakov said to Shimon and Levi, "You have caused me trouble by making me stink in the opinion of the local inhabitants, the Canaanite and the Perizi. Since I don't have many people, they'll align themselves together against me and attack me, and I will be destroyed, I and my household." They replied, "Should we let our sister be treated like a whore?" God said to Yaakov, "Get up, go to Bethel and live there, and make there an altar to God, who appeared to you when you fled Esau your brother." Then Yaakov said to his household and all the others with him, "Get rid of the foreign gods that you have with you, purify yourselves, and put on fresh clothes. We're going to move on and go up to Bethel. There I will build an altar to God, who answered me when I was in such distress, and stayed with me wherever I went." They gave Yaakov all the foreign gods in their possession and the earrings they were wearing, and Yaakov buried them under the pistachio tree near Shechem. While they were traveling, a terror from God fell upon the cities around them, so that none of them pursued the sons of Yaakov. Yaakov and all the people with him arrived at Luz, that is, Bethel, in the land of Canaan. He built there an altar and called the place El Bethel, God of Bethel, because it was there that God was revealed to him at the time when he was fleeing from his brother. Then Deborah, Rivka's nurse, died. She was buried below Bethel under the oak, which was given the name Allon Bachuth, Oak of Weeping. After Yaakov arrived from Padanaram, God appeared to him again and blessed him. God said to him, "Your name is Yaakov, but you will be called Yaakov no longer. Your name will be Israel." Thus he named him Israel. God further said to him, "I am El Shaddai. Be fruitful and multiply. A nation, indeed a group of nations, will come from you. Kings will be descended from you. Moreover, the land which I gave to Abraham and Isaac I will give to you, and I will give the land to your descendants after you. Then God went up from him there where he had spoken on him. Yaakov set up a standing stone in the place where he had spoken with him, a stone pillar. And there he poured out a drink offering on it and put oil on it. Yaakov called the place where God spoke with him Bethel. They traveled on from Bethel, and while there was still some distance to go before arriving in Ephrat, Rachel went into labor, and she had great difficulty with it. While she was undergoing this hard labor, the midwife said to her, "Don't worry, this is also a son for you." But she died in childbirth. As she was dying, she named her son Ben-Oni, son of Magriv. But his father called him Benjamin, son of the right hand, son of the south. So Rachel died and was buried on the way to Ephrat, that is, Bethlehem. Yaakov set up a standing stone on her grave. It is the standing stone of Rachel's grave to this day. Now remember what I told you to take note of, that Jacob had said that whoever had the idols would die. He was actually pronouncing death on Rachel without even realizing it. So that tells us that what we say has a lot of meaning, so be careful of what you say. Verse 21. Israel continued his travels and pitched his tent on the other side of Migdal Eder. It was while Israel was living in that land that Reuben went and slept with Bilhah, his father's concubine, and Israel heard about it. Yaakov had 12 sons. The sons of Leah were Reuben, Yaakov's firstborn, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, Issachar, and Zebulun. The sons of Rachel were Joseph and Benjamin. The sons of Bilhah, Rachel's slave girl, were Dan and Naphtali. And the sons of Zilpah, Leah's slave girl, were Gad and Asher. These were Yaakov's sons, born to him in Padan Aram. Yaakov came home to his father, Yitzhak, at Mamre, near Kiryat Arba, also known as Hebron, where Abraham and Yitzhak had lived as foreigners. Yitzhak lived to be 180 years old. There he breathed his last, died, and was gathered to his people, an old man full of years, and his sons Esau and Yaakov buried him. Chapter 36. This is the genealogy of Esau, that is Edom. Esau chose Canaanite women as his wives: Adah, the daughter of Elon the Hittite, Aholibama, the daughter of Anna, the daughter of Zivon the Havah, and Basmat, Ishmael's daughter, sister of Aviot. Anna bore to Esau Eliphaz, Basmat bore Reuel, and Aholibama bore Yeush, Yalam, and Korah. These were the sons of Esau, born to him in the land of Canaan. Esau took his wives, his sons and daughters, the others in his household, his cattle and other animals, and everything else he owned, which he had acquired in the land of Canaan, and went off to a country distant from his brother Yaakov. For their possessions had become too great for them to live together, and the countryside through which they were traveling couldn't support so much livestock. So Esau lived in the hill country of Seir. Esau is Edom. This is a genealogy of Esau, the father of Edom, in the hill country of Seir. The names of Esau's sons were Eliphaz, son of Adah, the wife of Esau, and Reuel, the son of Basmat, the wife of Esau. The sons of Eliphaz were Teman, Omar, Zepho, Gatam, and Kenaz. Timnah was the concubine of Eliphaz, Esau's son, and she bore to Eliphaz Amalek. These were the descendants of Adah, Esau's wife. Now remember, in later on, specifically also in the book of Esther, it talks about the Amalekites. So the Amalekites are actually descended from Esau. The sons of Reuel were Nahat, Zerach, Shema, and Mizah. These were the sons of Basmat, Esau's wife. These were the sons of Aholibama, the daughter of Anah, the daughter of Zalvon, Esau's wife. She bore to Esau Yeush, Yalam, and Korach. The chieftains of the sons of Esau were the sons of Eliphaz, the firstborn of Esau, and the chieftains of Teman, Omar, Zepho, Kenaz, Korach, Gatam, and Amalek. These were the chieftains descended from Eliphaz and Edom, and from Edom. The sons of Reuel, Esau's son, were the chieftains of Nahat, Zerach, Shema, and Mizam. These were the chieftains descended from Reuel in the land of Edom, and from Basmat, Esau's wife. The sons of Aholibama, Esau's wife, were the chieftains of Yeush, Yalam, and Korach. These were the chieftains descended from Aholibama, the daughter of Anah, Esau's wife. These were the descendants of Esau, that is Edom, and these were their chieftains. These were the descendants of Seir, the Hori, the local inhabitants: Lotam, Shobal, Zilvan, Anah, Dishan, Etzer, and Dishan. Dishan. So there's Dishan, D-I-S-H-O-N, and Dishan, D-I-S-H-A-N. These were the chieftains descended from the Hori, the people of Seir, in the land of Edom. The sons of Lotam were Hori and Hemam. Lotam's sister was Timnah. The sons of Shobal were Alvan, Manahat, Abel, Shapho, and Onam. The sons of Zivon were Aya and Anam. This is the Anah who found the hot springs in the desert while pasturing his father Zivon's donkeys. The children of Anah were Dishan, D-I-S-H-O-M, and Aholibama, the daughter of Anam. The sons of Dishan, D-I-S-H-O-M, were Hemdan, Eshban, Yitran, and Karan. The sons of Etzer were Bilhan, Zeavan, and Akon. The sons of Dishan, D-I-S-H-A-N, were Utz and Aaron. These were the chieftains descended from the Hori, the chieftains of Lotan, Shobal, Zivan, Anah, Dishan, Etzer, and Dishan. They were the chieftains descended from the Hori by their clans and Seir. Following are the kings who reigned in the land of Edom before any king had reigned over the people of Israel. Bela, the son of Beor, reigned in Edom. The name of his city was Dinhaval. When Bela died, Yovav, the son of Zerach, from Bosra, reigned in his place. When Yovav died, Husham from the land of Temani reigned in his place. When Husham died, Hadad, the son of Bedad, who killed Midian in the field of Moab, reigned in his place. The name of his city was Avit. When Hadad died, Samlah of Masrekah reigned in his place. When Samlah died, Shaul of Rehoboth by the river reigned in his place. When Shaul died, Baal-Hanan, the son of Achbor, reigned in his place. When Baal-Hanan died, Hadar reigned in his place. The name of his city was Peu, and his wife's name was Mahet-Abel, the daughter of Matred, the daughter of Zahav. These are the names of the chieftains descended from Esau, according to their clans, places, and names. The chieftains of Timnah, Alva, Yatet, and Aholibama, Elah, Panan, Kenaz, Teman, Mipsar, Magdiel, and Aram. These were the chieftains of Edom according to their settlements in the land they owned. This is Esau, the father of Edom. Chapter 37. Yaakov continued living in the land where his father had lived as a foreigner, the land of Canaan. Here is the history of Yaakov. When Joseph was 17 years old, he used to pasture the flock with his brothers, even though he was still a boy. Once when he was with the sons of Bilhah and the sons of Zilpah, his father's wives, he brought a bad report about them to their father. Now Israel loved Joseph the most of all his children, because he was the son of his old age, and he made him a long-sleeved robe. When his brothers saw that their father loved him more than all his brothers, they began to hate him and reached a point where they couldn't even talk with him in a civil manner. Joseph had a dream which he told his brothers, and that made them hate him all the more. He said to them, "Listen while I tell you about this dream of mine. We were tying up bundles of wheat in the field when suddenly my bundle got up by itself and stood upright. Then your bundles came, gathered around mine, and prostrated themselves before it." His brothers retorted, "Yes, you will certainly be our king. You'll do a great job of bossing us around." And they hated him still more for his dreams and for what he said. He had another dream, which he told his brothers. "Here, I had another dream, and there were the sun, the moon, and 11 stars, prostrating themselves before me." He told his father too, as well as his brothers. But his father rebuked him. "What is this dream you have had? Do you really expect me, your mother, and your brothers to come and prostrate ourselves before you on the ground?" His brothers were jealous of him, but his father kept the matter in mind. After this, when his brothers had gone to pasture their father's sheep at Shechem, Israel asked Joseph, "Aren't your brothers pasturing the sheep at Shechem? Come, I will send you to them." He answered, "Here I am." He said to him, "Go now, see whether the things are going well with your brothers and with the sheep, and bring word back to me." So he sent him away from the Hebron valley, and he went to Shechem, where a man found him wandering around in the countryside. The man asked him, "What are you looking for?" "I'm looking for my brothers," he answered. "Tell me, please, where are they pasturing the sheep?" The man said, "They've left here, because I heard them say, 'Let's go to Dothan.'" Joseph went after his brothers and found them in Dothan. They spotted him in the distance, and before he had arrived where they were, they had already plotted to kill him. They said to each other, "Look, this dreamer is coming. So come now, let's kill him and throw him into one of these water cisterns here. Then we'll say some wild animal devoured him. We'll see then what becomes of his dreams." But when Reuben heard this, he saved him from being destroyed by them. He said, "We shouldn't take his life. Don't shed blood." Reuben added, "Throw him into this cistern here in the wilds, but don't lay hands on him yourselves." He intended to rescue him from them later and restore him to his father. So it was when Joseph arrived to be with his brothers, they stripped off his robe, the long-sleeved robe he was wearing, and took him and threw him into the cistern. The cistern was empty, without any water in it. Then they sat down to eat their meal, but as they looked up, they saw in front of them a caravan of Ishmaelim coming from Gilead, their camels loaded with aromatic gum, healing resin, and opium, on their way down to Egypt. Yehudah said to his brothers, "What advantage is it to us if we kill our brother and cover up his blood? Come, let's sell him to the Ishmaelim, instead of putting him to death with our own hands. After all, he is our brother, our own flesh." His brothers paid attention to him. So when the Midianite merchants passed by, they drew and lifted Joseph up out of the cistern and sold him for half a pound of silver shekels to the Ishmaelim, who took Joseph on to Egypt. Reuben returned to the cistern, and upon seeing that Joseph wasn't in it, tore his clothes in mourning. He returned to his brothers and said, "The boy isn't there. Where can I go now?" They took Joseph's robe, killed a male goat, and dipped the robe in the blood. Then they sent the long-sleeved robe and brought it to their father, saying, "We found this. Do you know if it's your son's robe or not?" He recognized it and cried, "It's my son's robe. Some wild animal has torn Joseph in pieces and eaten him." Yaakov tore his clothes and, putting sackcloth around his waist, mourned his son for many days. Though all his sons and daughters tried to comfort him, he refused all consolation, saying, "No, I will go down to the grave to my son mourning. And his father wept for him. In Egypt, the Midianites sold Joseph to Potiphar, one of Pharaoh's officials, a captain of the guard. So just another side note here, that the Ishmaelim, it also says that they are the Midianites. And Zipporah, who was married Moshe, or Moses, was a Midianite. So it's kind of interesting how, God brought both of Abraham's sons into the Israelite covenant, chosen people. I hadn't really thought about that before, but it was, Chapter 38. It was at this time that Yehuda went off from his brothers and settled near a man named Hira, who was an Adulamim. There, Yehuda saw one of the daughters of a certain Canaanite, whose name was Shua, and he took her and slept with her. She conceived and had a son, whom he named Er. She conceived again and had a son, and she called him Onam. Then she conceived yet again and had a son, whom she called Shelah. He was in Keziv when she gave birth to him. And so here's another example of where even the Canaanites were brought into this Israelite. Yehuda took a wife for Er, his firstborn, and her name was Tamar. But Er, Yehuda's firstborn, was evil from Adonai's perspective. So Adonai killed him. Yehuda said to Onam, "Go and sleep with your brother's wife. Perform the duty of a husband's brother to her, and preserve your brother's line of descent." However, Onam knew that the child would not count as his. So whenever he had intercourse with his brother's wife, he spilled his semen on the ground, so as not to give his brother offspring. What he did was evil from Adonai's perspective, so he killed him too. Then Yehuda said to Tamar, his daughter-in-law, "Stay a widow in your father's house until my son Shelah grows up." For he thought, "I don't want him to die too, like his brothers." So Tamar went and lived at home with her father. In due time, Shua's daughter, the wife of Yehuda, died. After Yehuda had been comforted, he went up to be with his sheep shearers in Timnah, he and his friend Hira the Adulamim. Tamar was told, "Your father-in-law has gone up to Timnah to shear his sheep." So she took off her widow's clothes, completely covered her face with her veil, and sat at the entrance to Anaim, which is on the way to Timnah. For she saw that Shelah had grown up, but she still was not being given to him as his wife. When Yehuda saw her, he thought she was a prostitute, because she had covered her face. So he went over to her where she was sitting and said, not realizing that she was his daughter-in-law, "Come, let me sleep with you." She answered, "What will you pay to sleep with me?" He said, "I will send you a kid from the flock of goats." She said, "Will you also give me something as a guarantee until you send it?" He answered, "What should I give you as a guarantee?" She said, "Your seal with its cord and the staff you're carrying in your hand." So he gave them to her, then went and slept with her, and she conceived by him. She got up and went away, took off her veil, and put on her widow's clothes. Yehuda sent the kid with his friend the Adulami to receive the guarantee items back from the woman, but he couldn't find her. He asked the people near where she had been, "Where's the prostitute who was on the road at Anaim?" But they answered, "There hasn't been any prostitute here." So he returned to Yehuda and said, "I couldn't find her." Also the people there said, "There hasn't been any prostitute here." Yehuda said, "All right, let her keep the things, so that we won't be publicly shamed. I sent the kid, but you didn't find her." About 3 months later, Yehuda was told, "Tamar, your daughter-in-law, has been acting like a whore. Moreover, she is pregnant as a result of her prostitution." Yehuda said, "Bring her out and let her be burned alive." When she was brought out, she sent this message to her father-in-law: "I am pregnant by the man to whom these things belong. Determine, I beg you, who these are: the signet, the cord, and the staff." Then Yehuda acknowledged owning them. He said, "She is more righteous than I, because I didn't let her become the wife of my son Shelah." And he never slept with her again. When she went into labor, it became evident that she was going to have twins. As she was in labor, one of them put out his hand, and the midwife took his hand and tied a scarlet thread on it, saying, "This one came out first." But then he withdrew his hand, and his brother came out. So she said, "How did you manage to break out first?" Therefore he was named Peretz, breaking out. Then out came his brother, and the scarlet thread on his hand, and he was given the name Zerach, scarlet. Chapter 39. Joseph was brought down to Egypt, and Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh's and captain of the guard, an Egyptian, bought him from the Ishmaelim who had brought him there. Adonai was with Joseph, and he became wealthy while he was in the household of his master the Egyptian. His master saw how Adonai was with him, and Adonai prospered everything he did. Joseph pleased him as he served him, and his master appointed him manager of his household. He entrusted all his possessions to Joseph. From the time he appointed him manager of his household and all his possessions, Adonai blessed the Egyptian's household for Joseph's sake. Adonai's blessing was on all he owned, whether in the house or in the field. So he left all his possessions in Joseph's care, and because he had him, he paid no attention to his affairs except for the food he ate. Now Joseph was well built and handsome as well. In time, the day came when his master's wife took a look at Joseph and said, "Sleep with me." But he refused, saying to his master's wife, "Look, because my master has me, he doesn't know what's going on in his house. He has put all his possessions in my charge. In this house I am his equal. He hasn't withheld anything from me except yourself, because you are his wife. How then could I do such a wicked thing and sin against God?" But she kept pressing him day after day. Nevertheless, he didn't listen to her. He refused to sleep with her or even be with her. However, one day, when he went into the house to do his work, and none of the men living in the house were staring doors, she grabbed him by his robe and said, "Sleep with me." But he fled, leaving his robe in her hand, and got himself outside. When she saw that he had left his robe in her hand and had escaped, she called the men of her house and said to them, "Look at this! My husband brought in a Hebrew to make fools of us. He came in and wanted to sleep with me, but I yelled out loudly. When he heard me yelling like that, he left his robe with me and ran out." She put the robe aside until his master came home. Then she said to him, "This Hebrew slave you brought us came in to make a fool of me, but when I yelled out, he left his robe with me and fled outside." When his master heard what his wife said as she showed him, "Here's what your slave did to me," he became furious. Joseph's master took him and put him in prison, in the place where the king's prisoners were kept. And there he was in the prison. But Adonai was with Joseph, showing him grace and giving him favor in the sight of the prison warden. The prison warden made Joseph supervisor of all the prisoners in the prison, so that whatever they did there, he was in charge of it. The prison warden paid no attention to anything Joseph did, because Adonai was with him, and whatever he did, Adonai prospered. Chapter 40. Sometime later, it came about that the Egyptian king's cupbearer and baker gave offense to the Lord, the king of Egypt. Pharaoh became angry with his two officers, the chief cupbearer and the chief baker. So he put them in custody in the house of the captain of the guard in the prison, in the same place where Joseph was kept. The captain of the guard charged Joseph to be with them, and he became their attendant while they remained in prison. One night the two of them, the king of Egypt's cupbearer and his baker, there in prison, both had dreams, each dream with its own meaning. Joseph came into them in the morning and saw that they looked sad. He asked Pharaoh's officers there with him in the prison of his master's house, "Why are you looking so sad today?" They said to him, "We each had a dream, and there's no one around who can interpret it." Joseph said to them, "Don't interpretations belong to God? Tell it to me, please." Then the chief cupbearer told Joseph his dream. "In my dream, there in front of me was a vine, and the vine had 3 branches. The branches budded, then it suddenly began to blossom, and finally clusters of ripe grapes appeared. Pharaoh's cup was in my hand, so I took the grapes and pressed them into Pharaoh's cup, and gave the cup to Pharaoh." Joseph said to him, "Here is its interpretation. The 3 branches are 3 days. Within 3 days, Pharaoh will lift up your head and restore you to your office. You will be giving Pharaoh his cup, as you used to when you were his cupbearer. But remember me when it goes well with you, and show me kindness, please, and mention me to Pharaoh, so that he will release me from this prison. For the truth is that I was kidnapped from the land of the Hebrews, and here too I have done nothing wrong that would justify putting me in this dungeon." When the chief baker saw that the interpretation was favorable, he said to Joseph, "I too saw in my dream. There were 3 baskets of white bread on my head. In the uppermost basket there were all kinds of baked goods for Pharaoh, but the birds ate them out of the basket on my head." Joseph answered, "Here is its interpretation. The 3 baskets are 3 days. Within 3 days Pharaoh will lift up your head from off of you. He will hang you on a tree, and the birds will eat your flesh off you." On the 3rd day, which was Pharaoh's birthday, he gave a party for all his officials, and he lifted up the head of the chief cupbearer and the head of the chief baker among his officials. He restored the chief cupbearer back to his position, so that he again gave Pharaoh his cup. But he hanged the chief baker, as Joseph had interpreted to them. Nevertheless, the chief cupbearer didn't remember Joseph, but forgot him. Chapter 41. At the end of 2 years, Pharaoh had a dream. He was standing beside the Nile River, and there came up out of the river 7 cows, sleek and fat, and they began feeding in swamp grass. After them there came up out of the river 7 more cows, miserable-looking and lean, and they stood by the other cows at the edge of the river. Then the miserable-looking and lean cows ate up the 7 sleek, fat cows. At this point Pharaoh woke up, but he went to sleep again and dreamt a second time. 7 full, ripe ears of grain grew out of a single stalk. After them 7 ears, thin and blasted by the east wind, sprang up, and the thin ears swallowed up the 7 full, ripe ears. Then Pharaoh woke up and realized it had been a dream. In the morning he found himself so upset that he summoned all the magicians of Egypt and all its wise men. Pharaoh told them his dreams, but no one there could interpret them for him. Then the chief cupbearer said to Pharaoh, "Today reminds me of something wherein I am at fault." Pharaoh was angry with his officials and put me in the prison of the house of the captain of the guard, me and the chief baker. One night both I and he had dreams, and each man's dream had its own meaning. There was with us a young man, a Hebrew, a servant of the captain of the guard, and we told him our dreams, and he interpreted them for us. He interpreted each man's dream individually, and it came about as he interpreted it to us. I was restored to my office, and he was hanged. Then Pharaoh summoned Joseph, and they brought him quickly out of the dungeon. He shaved himself, changed his clothes, and came in to Pharaoh. Pharaoh said to Joseph, "I had a dream, and there is no one who can interpret it. But I've heard it said about you that when you hear a dream, you can interpret it. Joseph answered Pharaoh, It isn't in me. God will give Pharaoh an answer that will set his mind at peace. Pharaoh said to Joseph, In my dream I stood at the edge of the river, and there came up out of the river 7 cows, fat and sleek, and they began feeding in the swamp grass. After them, there came up out of the river 7 more cows, poor, miserable looking, and lean. I've never seen such bad looking cows in all the land of Egypt. Then the lean and miserable looking cows ate up the first 7 fat cows. But after they had eaten them up, one couldn't tell that they had eaten them, because they were as miserable looking as before. At this point I woke up, but I dreamed again and saw 7 full ripe ears of grain growing out of a single stalk. After them, 7 ears, thin and blasted by the east wind, sprang up, and the thin ears swallowed up the 7 ripe ears. I told this to the magicians, but none of them could explain it to me. Joseph said to Pharaoh, The dreams of Pharaoh are the same. God has told Pharaoh what he is about to do. 7 good cows are 7 years, and the 7 good ears of grain are 7 years. The dreams are the same. Likewise, the 7 lean and miserable looking cows that came up after them are 7 years, and also the 7 empty ears blasted by the east wind. There will be 7 years of famine. This is what I told Pharaoh. God has shown Pharaoh what he is about to do. Here it is. There will be 7 years of abundance throughout the whole land of Egypt. But afterwards there will come 7 years of famine, and Egypt will forget all the abundance. The famine will consume the land, and the abundance will not be known in the land because of the famine that will follow, because it will be truly terrible. Why was the dream double for Pharaoh? Because the matter has been fixed by God, and God will shortly cause it to happen. Therefore, Pharaoh should look for a man both discreet and wise to put in charge of the land of Egypt. Pharaoh should do this, and he should appoint supervisors over the land to receive a 20% tax on the produce of the land of Egypt during the 7 years of abundance. They should gather all the food produced during these good years coming up and set aside grain under the supervision of Pharaoh to be used for food in the cities, and they should store it. This will be the land's food supply for the 7 years of famine that will come over the land of Egypt, so that the land will not perish as a result of the famine. The proposal seemed good both to Pharaoh and to all his officials. Pharaoh said to his officials, Can we find anyone else like him? The Spirit of God lives in him. So Pharaoh said to Joseph, Since God has shown you all this, there is no one as discerning and wise as you. You will be in charge of my household. All my people will be ruled by what you say. Only when I rule from my throne will I be greater than you. Pharaoh said to Joseph, Here, I place you in charge of the whole land of Egypt. Pharaoh took his signet ring off his hand and put it on Joseph's hand, and had him clothed in fine linen with a gold chain around his neck, and had him ride in his second-best chariot. And they cried before him, Bow down! Thus he placed him in charge of the whole land of Egypt. Pharaoh said to Joseph, I, Pharaoh, decree that without your approval, no one is to raise his hand or his foot in all the land of Egypt. Pharaoh called Joseph by the name Zaphnath-Paaneah, and gave him as his wife Osnat, the daughter of Potiphera, priest of On. Then Joseph went out throughout all the land of Egypt. Joseph was 30 years old when he stood before Pharaoh, king of Egypt. Then he left Pharaoh's presence and traveled through all the land of Egypt. During the 7 years of abundance, the earth brought forth heaps of produce. He collected all the food of these 7 years in the land of Egypt and stored it in the cities. The food grown in the fields outside each city, he stored in that city. He also stored grain in quantities like the sand on the seashore. so much that they stopped counting because it was beyond measure. 2 sons were born to Joseph before the year of famine came. Osnat, the daughter of Potipharah, priest of all, bore them to him. Joseph called the firstborn Manasseh, causing to forget, because God has caused me to forget all the troubles I suffered at the hands of my family. The second he called Ephraim, fruit, for God has made me fruitful in the land of my misfortune. The 7 years of abundance in the land of Egypt ended, and the 7 years of famine began to come. Just as Joseph had said, there was famine in all lands, but throughout the land of Egypt there was food. When the whole land of Egypt started feeling the famine, the people cried to Pharaoh for food. And Pharaoh said to all the Egyptians, "Go to Joseph and do what he tells you to do." The famine was over all the earth. But then Joseph opened all the storehouses and sold food to the Egyptians, since the famine was severe in the land of Egypt. Moreover, all the countries came to Egypt to Joseph to buy grain, because the famine was severe throughout the earth. So, one thing to note here, make a note, was that Joseph's sons, Manasseh and Ephraim, they were born the year before the famine hit. So that means that whenever the famine was over, they would have been 8 years old. Now Yaakov, chapter 42. Now Yaakov saw that there was rain in Egypt. So Yaakov said to his sons, "Why are you staring at each other? Look," he said, "I've heard that there's grain in Egypt. Go down there and buy some for us from there, so that we can stay alive and not die." Thus Joseph's 10 brothers went down to buy grain from Egypt, except for Benjamin, Joseph's brother. Yaakov did not send him with his brothers, because he was afraid something might happen to him. The sons of Israel came to buy along with the others that came, since the famine extended to the land of Canaan. Joseph was governor over the land. It was he who sold to all the people of the land. Now when Joseph's brothers came and prostrated themselves before him on the ground, Joseph saw his brothers and recognized them, but he acted toward them as if he were a stranger, and spoke harshly with them. He asked them, "Where are you from?" They answered, "From the land of Canaan, to buy food." So Joseph recognized his brothers, but they didn't recognize him. Remembering the dreams he had about them, Joseph said to them, "You are spies. You've come to spot our country's weaknesses." "No, my lord," they replied. "Your servants have come to buy food. We're all the sons of one man. We're upright men. Your servants aren't spies." "No," he said to them, "you've come to spy out our country's weaknesses." They said, "We, your servants, are 12 brothers, the sons of one man in the land of Canaan. The youngest stayed with our father, and another one is gone." "Just as I said," replied Joseph, "you're spies. Here's how you can prove you're not lying. As Pharaoh lives, you will not leave here unless your youngest brother comes here. Send one of you and let him bring your brother. Meanwhile, you will be kept in custody. This will prove whether there is any truth in what you say. Otherwise, as Pharaoh lives, you are certainly spies." Then he put all of them together in prison for 3 days. On the 3rd day, Joseph said to them, "Do what I say and stay alive, for I fear God. If you are upright men, let one of your brothers remain incarcerated in the prison you're being kept in, while you go and carry grain back to relieve the famine in your homes. But bring your youngest brother to me. In this way, your statements will be verified, and you won't die." So they did it. They said to each other, "We are in fact guilty concerning our brother. He was in distress and pleaded with us. We saw it and wouldn't listen. That's why this distress has come upon us now." Reuben answered them, "Didn't I tell you, don't wrong the boy? But you wouldn't hear of it. Now comes the reckoning for his blood." They had no idea that Joseph understood them, since an interpreter was translating for them. Joseph turned away from them and wept. Then he returned and spoke to them. He took Shimon from among them and put him in prison before their eyes. Next he ordered that their containers be filled with grain, that every man's money be put back in his bag, and that they be given provisions for the journey. When these things had been done for them, they loaded their grain on their donkeys and departed. But at camp that night, as one of them opened his pack to give fodder to his donkey, he noticed his money. There it was, just inside his pack. He said to his brothers, "My money has been restored. There it is, right in my bag." At that their hearts sank. They turned, trembling, to one another and said, "What is this that God has done to us?" They returned to Yaakov their father in the land of Canaan and told him all that had happened to them. The man, the Lord of the land, spoke harshly with us. He took us for spies in his country. We said to him, "We are upright men. We're not spies. We are 12 brothers, sons of our father. One is gone, and the youngest stay with our father in the land of Canaan." But the man, the Lord of the land, said to us, "Here is how I will know that you are upright men. Leave one of your brothers with me, take grain to relieve the famine in your homes, and go on your way. But bring your youngest brother to me. By this I will know that you aren't spies, but are upright men. Then I will return your brother to you, and you will do business in the land." Next, as they entered their packs, there was each man's bag of money in his pack. And when they and their father saw their bags of money, they became afraid. Yaakov their father said to them, "You have robbed me of my children. Joseph is gone, Shimon is gone, and now you're taking Benjamin away. It all falls on me." Reuben said to his father, "If I don't bring him back to you, you can kill my own 2 sons. Put him in my care. I will return him to you." But he replied, "My son will not go down with you. His brother is dead, and he alone is left. If anything were to happen to him while traveling with you, you would bring my gray hair down to Sheol with grief." Chapter 43. But the famine was severe in the land. So when they had eaten up the grain which they had brought out of Egypt, the father said to them, "Go again, buy us a little food." Yehudah said to him, "The man expressly warned us, 'You will not see my face unless your brother is with you.' If you will send our brother with us, we will go down and buy you food. But if you will not send him, we will not go down. For the man said to us, 'You will not see my face unless your brother is with you.'" Israel said, "Why did you bring such trouble my way by telling the man you had another brother?" They answered, "The man kept questioning us about ourselves and about our kinsman. He asked, 'Is your father still alive? Do you have another brother?' And we answered according to the literal meaning of his questions. How were we to know he would say, 'Bring your brother down'?" Yehudah said to Israel his father, "Send the boy with me, and we will make preparations and leave, so that we may stay alive and not die, both we and you, and also our little ones. I myself will guarantee his safety. You can hold me responsible. If I fail to bring him to you and present him to your face, let me bear the blame forever. Except for our lengthy delay, we would have been there again by now." The father Israel answered them, "If that's how it is, do this. Take in your containers some of the land's best products, and bring the man a gift. Some healing resin, a little honey, aromatic gum, opium, pistachio nuts, and almonds. Take twice the amount of money with you, and return the money came back with you in your packs. It could have been an oversight. Yes, and take your brother too, and get ready, and go again to the man. May El Shaddai give you favor in the man's sight, so that he will release to you your other brother as well as Benjamin. As for me, if I must lose my children, lose them I will." The men took that gift, and they took twice the money with them, and Benjamin. Then they prepared, went down to Egypt, and stood before Joseph. When Joseph saw Benjamin with them, he said to his household manager, "Take the men inside the house, kill the animals, and prepare the meat. These men will dine with me at noon." The men did as Joseph ordered and brought the men into Joseph's house. Upon being ushered inside Joseph's house, the men became fearful. They said, "It's because of the money that was returned in our packs the first time that we've been brought inside, so that he can use it as an excuse to attack us, take us as slaves, and seize our donkeys too." So they approached the manager of Joseph's household and spoke to him at the entrance of the house. "Please, my lord, the first time we indeed came down to buy food. But when we got to camp, we opened our packs, and there inside our packs was each man's money, the full amount. We have brought it back with us. Moreover, we have brought down other money to buy food. We have no idea who put our money in our packs." "Stop worrying," he replied. "Don't be afraid. Your God and the God of your father put treasure in your packs. As for your money, I was the one who received it." Then he brought Shimon out to them. The man brought the men into Joseph's house and gave them water, and they washed their feet, and he provided fodder for their donkeys. Then they got their gift ready for Joseph's arrival at noon, for they had heard that they were going to eat a meal there. When Joseph arrived home, they went into the house and presented him with the gift they had brought with them, then prostrated themselves before him on the ground. He asked them how they were and inquired, "Is your father well? The old man of whom you spoke, is he still alive?" They answered, "Your servant our father is well. Yes, he is still alive." As they bowed in respect, he looked up and saw Benjamin his brother, his mother's son, and said, "Is this your youngest brother, of whom you spoke to me?" And added, "May God be good to you, my son." Then Joseph hurried out, because his feelings toward his brother were so strong that he wanted to cry. He went into his bedroom, and there he wept. Then he washed his face and came out, but he controlled himself as he gave the order to serve the meal. They served him by himself, the brothers by themselves, and the Egyptians included at the meal by themselves. Egyptians don't eat with Hebrews, because that is abhorrent to them. So they sat there facing him, the firstborn in the place of honor, the youngest in last place, and the men expressed their amazement to each other. Each was given his serving there in front of him, but Benjamin's portion was 5 times as large as any of theirs. So they drank and enjoyed themselves with him. So that is the end of this reading, and we'll pick up next time in chapter 44. And I feel like God wants me to reach out to anyone out there who has not received salvation, that maybe you don't know how to do that. All you have to do is just confess that Jesus Christ is Lord and accept Him to your heart, and ask Him to forgive you of anything that you've done wrong. There's no special thing you have to say. You just say it in your own words. And if you want to do it inside of a church, that's fine. But you don't have to be inside of a church. However, I do reach out that if you don't go to a church, that you do go to one and find a good one. Ask God to send you to the one He wants you to go to. I'm not saying that any churches are bad. There are some good ones and there are some bad ones. But just because you go to one over another one doesn't mean necessarily that, there's one bad. It's the one that God wants you to go to is the one where you're the people that He's already picked out to be a blessing to you, and for you to be a blessing to them. And just like I said, just ask God to forgive you of anything that you've done wrong, and don't do it again. But if you do it again, don't do it because well, God forgave me, so I can just do it again and He'll forgive me again. So, and now I'll just go back and you just keep going back and doing it, knowing that God will forgive you. Yes, He will forgive you, but you need to do it. But you need to be. But whenever you, because you will do things wrong. But when you are doing something wrong, you make sure that you're doing it because you didn't mean to do it, not because you just, you think that you can just keep going. Because whenever you just keep going back, it's kind of like whenever a person cheats on their spouse. I'm just going to say I know wives cheat on their husbands and husbands cheat on their wives. But I'm just going to use, husbands as a cheater, make it more simple. So it's like a husband cheats on his wife. And he goes to her and he says, honey, I'm sorry. Will you please forgive me? And she says, sure, I'll forgive you. And then he goes about and he cheats on her again because it's like, she forgave me this time, so she'll forgive me again. And he goes to her and he says, honey, I'm sorry. I cheated on you. Will you please forgive me? Yes, honey, I will. And then he just keeps doing that. And eventually she realizes that he's not really sorry. That he's just asking her forgiveness because he doesn't want his marriage to split up. He wants to have his cake and eat it too. And eventually she just get tired of it and leave him. And that's basically the same way that you're doing to God whenever you intentionally keep doing the things that you know are wrong after you've asked Him to forgive you. So, I hope you have a good day, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.